What's up, Ego Hackers? Welcome to the C.S. Joseph podcast. Today's episode, we're going to be discussing how to develop your TI parent, which is a great question. Oftentimes, people don't really understand the strategy that they could utilize to develop their parent functions. And while the strategy kind of ends up being the same overall from parent by parent, the application is completely different. So I could totally understand why, this question bears relevance, because there's a lot of confusion out there as to what is the best way to do it. So, like, for example, TI parent, it's a parent function. Parent functions are pessimistic, but the other aspect of the parent functions, and if you haven't watched it already, I think it might be season 16, which is cognitive attitudes, I believe. If you haven't watched that yet, you probably should watch that. But the point is, understanding like the role of the parent function, it's still the last cognitive function that develops within your ego. So, like, from a psychological perspective, it's the one function that people have the most difficult time developing, throughout their life. So the reason why is because, like, when a person is born, the first function that forms is ultimately their hero function, followed by their child function, because they're both the optimistic functions. And then after that, the inferior function is what actually starts developing as the first pessimistic function. And then the parent is the final function to start developing within a person's ego. And the parent function doesn't really begin, like, it turns on, but it's underdeveloped in adolescence, basically. That's not to say that, children can't use their parent functions. They can, but it's even way more underdeveloped as is. And really, oftentimes people equate development of parent functions to, just their age, basically. But that's not entirely accurate. It's really not. It's only there's different ways to develop your parent, and oftentimes this is why people struggle with teenagers when they're raising teenagers, because parents are trying to get their children to be more responsible, which means that their parent functions would have to be behaving responsibly, because the parent function is ultimately where a person gains their personal responsibility for themselves within their life. The thing is, though, is that when parents start trying to develop the parent function and encourage the parent function within their children end up lashing out, they end up fighting back, and ultimately that's the cause as to why teenagers can be such a problem to deal with when they're in adolescence, because they just don't really know what to do. The parent function is so new, and their ego is finally protecting itself. Now, to learn more about this, I highly recommend you become a member, csjoseph.life/members or csjoseph.life/portal. Go to the Journeyman section, become a Journeyman member. It's only like $29 a month, and at least 7 weeks of binge-worthy content, but there's years worth of content in it. But, current record of an INTJ binging it day in and day out is about 7 weeks. Trying to increase that to 8 weeks, and who knows, we'll get it more. There's so much content there. I'm hoping to get, it'll take an entire year for someone to binge all of it. It'd just be so much, but who knows. But yeah, go check that out. The reason I mentioned that, though, is because the parent lectures are in there. How to parent XYZ type. They're really, really important. If you're a parent, if you have a child, or if you're planning on being a parent one day, or maybe you yourself are a child, you don't have children yet, and you kind of want to learn how to parent yourself, I highly recommend you check out those lectures. They're very, very important. And they basically hit all of the psychological buttons necessary in order for you to parent yourself or become a better parent for children you already have, provided you actually know what their psychological type actually is. Now, anyway, people often think that just age is necessary to develop a parent function, or sometimes people also think when a person leaves their family and their ego is finally free from their family, have their own place, their own job, their own purpose, their own thing, their own life, basically, apart from their nuclear family or their immediate family, that their parent function will develop. And that's also false. That's really false. Also, for those who are members of the ego hacker community, oftentimes they think that, via cognitive axis, If I focus on developing my child function, my parent function will naturally develop as well. And that's not necessarily the case when it comes to finishing out your ego development, in terms of your parent function. That's not exactly always the case. I found out that personally, and this, I have to admit, this is where, some of my own personal bias can actually come into play here. Because my extroverted feeling child, my inner child, was ultimately rejected by my immediate family, rejected by my extended family, my nuclear family, rejected by the church, rejected by all my peers at school growing up, and also entirely rejected in my 20s. So as a result of that, my child function is very underdeveloped, and it's also it's developmentally behind. It's so developmentally behind that I just decided to just stop really using my child function, or try to stop developing it, and decided to go in a different pathway. And this has caused me to become an unconscious developed, unconscious focused ENTP with my octagram. I explain this heavily in the members area, especially the Cutting Edge podcast episode from August 2022. I highly recommend you guys watch that episode because it lays down the foundation of octagram, as well as my personal journey as to what octagram is. Octagram basically is how we measure someone's nurtural development and how it impacts their natural development within their personality type. Octagram is the C.S. Joseph version of Enneagram, and it is the system that we're going to be using instead of Enneagram for the ego hacker community. Again, if you want to get educated on that, there's 2 places you can get educated on that. In the members area for the Cutting Edge episode, August 2022, or you can join our Discord, which is linktree/CS Joseph, and then you hit the Discord invite at the bottom of that list, linktr.ee/CS Joseph. You can go get on our Discord server and then go into the Discuss Octagram channel and read all of the pinned messages. As a result, you can start your journey on getting educated on octagram until such time we have it released, or at least expanded upon within our companion guide, which I believe it will be out in the 3rd edition or 4th edition. 2nd edition was just released on ucha.app. We have a new personality test on Ucha. Lots of new stuff. I'm not trying to use this episode for announcements, but seriously, get in there, check it out, get educated. But the companion guide 3rd edition will have the temple stuff, and then maybe 3rd edition may contain octagram. We might have to wait till 4th edition before we have octagram added there to talk about human nurture. So, anyway, understanding nurture is very important, and this is while parents are trying to nurture their children into developing their parent functions, but it doesn't work. And in my personal experience, and I could be speaking from bias here, using my extroverted feeling child consistently in an attempt to develop my parent, it just really hasn't worked out for me. It's possible that through cognitive transition, if I was more comfortable using my subconscious, my ISFJ side, which kind of forces my extroverted feeling child to become more parental in of its own right, and then as a result of that, makes my TI to be more of a child, so I end up using it more when I'm in cognitive transition to my subconscious. Yeah, sure, you could argue more use leads to more development of that cognitive function, but I don't really have a lot of anecdotal evidence to support that, much less having evidence even for other people. I'm not entirely sure. I'm just unsure. So I'm going to go with my personal experience here. Now, I'm not to say or going to claim that this is how it is for everybody, but I know that it is one pathway that I know will work. And that is targeting your critic function. Extroverted thinking, critic. If you're a TI parent trying to develop your TI parent, you need to actually focus all your effort onto TE critic and developing TE critic, because via cognitive orbit, because the critic is linked to your TI parent via cognitive orbit. If you don't know what cognitive orbit is, again, become a member, go watch season 18. There's multiple episodes discussing cognitive orbit and how it actually works, and you can kind of see how it is. But extroverted thinking critic is attached to introverted thinking parent, and it can help develop your parent function from a teenager to a responsible parent. How? Well, first of all, if you're a TI parent, you need to get off your ass and you need to start reading books, non-fiction books specifically. It's not good enough to read fiction. And you also want to read books that you disagree with, that you already know that you disagree with their point. You know you disagree with the author. You don't like the author. You have to force yourself to take in input that you don't like or you don't agree with, you don't think is true. Because what this does is this helps you develop the skill of critical thinking. And if you could develop the skill of critical thinking with your extroverted thinking critic, you will naturally be able to develop critical thinking with your TI parent, which will cause your TI parent to become more responsible over time. Okay? It is a thing. It can work. It is a guaranteed outcome. Well, this is it's the long journey. I do know an ENTP. His name's Noah. Shout out to Noah. Love you, bro. But Noah, he seems to have his TI parent develop more than most people, but I'm not entirely sure he did it with his TE critic approach. I think he probably did it through cognitive transition, like I was saying a few minutes ago. But because he's very subconscious developed as an ENTP, which is very different from me being unconscious developed. I'm more developed on my INTJ side of my mind, whereas he's more developed on his ISFJ side of his mind. So there's some huge differences there. I'm not saying that, my way is the only way or the best way. I'm just saying it works. That's all I'm saying. Guaranteed outcome for TI parent development. Read books. Develop critical thinking. Challenge everything, but challenge alone is not good enough. You have to challenge, but then figure out why you're challenging. And then when you challenge, verify your challenge. Should I be challenging this? Why am I challenging this? Is this a good idea? Is this responsible for me to do? You got to look into that. You got to consider that risk with your thinking. Because responsible thinking is about handling input properly. Here's the other thing. If you're not going out of your way to ask for input from other people and ask other people what their opinions are in your life, you're not being responsible to your TI parent. Because then you're just walking around being a TI teenager who thinks you know everything, or you're just being a know-it-all. I mean, it's one of the biggest criticisms Chris Taylor has of me. He's been trying to encourage me to ask other people my opinion about, or their opinion about other people that I allow in my life before I allow those people in my life, so that I could be more responsible and make better decisions and not drag everyone else down with me, right? And that's an area where he's a member of the Soul Temple. The Soul Temple cares about character, and he's trying to develop my character, my personal character, better as a result. Okay? That's like how he's trying to contribute to me, using his INFJ shadow development to be able to help me grow as a person, right? By providing challenge in that area. So yeah, it's all about critical thinking and developing critical thinking. You got to take in input. You got to ask people opinions. You have to entertain ideas with full neutrality, ideas that you disagree with. You have to be willing to become a method actor of process or a method actor of systems. Take a lifestyle or a system or a way of doing something or a procedure or an idea and go experiment with it. Become the idea for a temporary amount of time. Try it on. See if it works. If it doesn't, you moved on. At least you gave it a chance, right? So you got to give ideas a chance, but you got to test it out. You got to be an experimenter. It's like being a scientist of ideas to a point, right? So that you can further develop your critical thinking. Also, there's an excellent resource. If you really want to, fast track TI parent development, I highly recommend reading the book Socratic by Ward Farnsworth. It's an excellent analysis and exegesis of Socrates. Socrates, who was an ENTP, he has TI parent. And it talks about the Socratic method. Learn the Socratic method and make use of the Socratic method to benefit you and people in your life. It is absolutely critical that you do this. So yeah, it's not just good enough because, TE critic will just automatically dismiss things without actually giving it proper consideration. You have to learn how to develop your TE critic properly. And that is, yeah, you can dismiss them, but if you don't have any evidence or input or information to back up why you dismiss, and you can't explain why and you can't explain yourself, that means your TI parent is really underdeveloped anyway. So you have to be willing to experiment. You have to be willing to consider those ideas. Especially, you want to be listened to, right? Well, what good are you if you're not able, what good is your TI parent if you're not willing to listen to other people with their TE critic? Don't just auto-dismiss people. One of the main reasons why a lot of my relationships have been absolutely terrible in my life is because I didn't listen. And this can actually lead to even worse behaviors. Imagine a TI parent offering unsolicited advice to other people with their extroverted feeling child. It just causes their child to have its teeth kicked in, and ultimately they're just alienating people. And then their TI parent still stays underdeveloped. They have to develop the habit or the skill of critical thinking. Socratic method is a very quick way to develop critical thinking. It's probably the best form of critical thinking on the earth, in my opinion. That's just an example, right? So please consider that. Please understand that that's, the benefit there, and that's ultimately what that means, right? So anyway, folks, that's how you develop a TI parent, at least according to me and my point of view. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next episode.